2 hours, the budget debate. The debate on the 2022 budget will begin in Parliament. It's a very crucial process to dissecting the key issues and with the end game of either accepting it or rejecting it. Tonight, we're going to hear the minority's alternative as far as the budget is concerned. And indeed, if you haven't followed, the top headliner is the E-levy introduction, which is this 1.75% levy that is going to be borne by you, the sender, when it comes to electronic transactions. And the finance minister has said they want this to widen the tax net. And indeed, it covers electronic transactions on mobile money payments, bank transfers, merchant payments, and inward remittances. And if you look at it, if you're paying, if you're doing mobile transfers of 100 cedis, government says you won't pay. Anything above that, you begin to pay. So it doesn't affect the first 100 cedis. This is going to go to Parliament for a bit more dialogue on this matter. And some are asking for a complete scrapping or a reduction, some have said, of the 1.75 to something pretty lower than that. Now, according to the finance minister, we need this to improve entrepreneurship among the young, among the youth, also improve youth employment, cybersecurity, public transport, digital road and infrastructure as well. That's what the money is going to be used for, according to the finance minister. We've heard from the minority already serving notice that they're going to kick against this. Tonight, we'll get to know exactly why. And they've made the point that the tax, if you really look at the current circumstances of the Ghanaian, of the ordinary Ghanaian, it imposes additional burdens that is simply intolerable. Other experts have said similar things about the levy. For example, one of Ghana's foremost tax analysts and experts, Abdulali Nacha, had said that the tax says simply withdraw the proposition, consult all stakeholders, and return with a more comprehensive and acceptable one. So he comes to a certain conclusion that something needs to be done about the E-levy. The form in which it's currently proposed, he believes cannot or will not serve the ultimate interest, the national interest generally. We've also heard from the e-commerce association. They are actually warning that this will affect the e-economy. Fintech industries especially will suffer. They believe this will slow down the development of e-commerce in Ghana, since most payments are made through mobile wallets and fintech platforms. And so government rethink this. But if you look at it broadly, since COVID came, government has introduced quite a bit of additional levies. We've tracked, obviously, the 1.75% levy, but that's not all. We've seen the COVID-19 health levy, a 1 percentage point increase in NHI. Government has imposed this. Financial sector cleanup levy of 5% on profit before tax, and the sanitation and pollution levy, which, by the way, is on fuel prices. And the GPLT and others have said, remove this. Tonight, we've heard that some of the OMCs, including GOIL of all places, have increased now their fuel per litre to 6 cedis, 99 pesos. 6 cedis, 99 pesos a litre, which is just 1 peso away from the dreaded 7 cedi mark per litre, which means that we're going to see a possibly, I mean, even as it is right now, 1 litre of petrol is more than $1. Well, that is the criticism that we've seen. But remember, when you are in government, you have a government in waiting in the opposition. So if all this indeed isn't good for the ordinary Ghanaian, it's inimical to your interest and to the economy, what is the alternative? The minority leader is joining me with the minority alternative, and he's here on PM Express ahead of the budget debate tomorrow. Don't go anywhere, stay with me. He's my guest, and he's seated right after this break. And thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. As I said, my guest is the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, who is my guest tonight on PM Express. Mr. Idrisu, thank you for your time here on PM Express. Always a pleasure to host you on the show. The last time you were here, good feedback, and so I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Parliament essentially has a very critical oversight responsibility when it comes to budget oversight. Indeed, you can accept that is one of the core functions of Parliament in the exercise of oversight for scrutiny of budget, approval of budget. But there's always a myth surrounding the fact that Parliament is overseer of the purse. When you have a Parliament of Ghana,
is it a myth? It's a reality. You are the overseer of the purse.
When you have a Parliament also holding a calabash following a Minister of Finance asking for more, essentially it only can be a myth. So it's heartwarming to hear Speaker Alban Bagbin determined to right some wrongs. In his view, he thinks that a certain percentage of our GDP, be it 5 to 10%, be dedicated to strengthen governance institutions, in particular the Parliament of Ghana and the judiciary as organs of state, and not give every other thing to the executive. So currently, if you do an assessment of budgetary allocations since 1993, you always have the executive get away with 96% of the overall budget to their detriment. And the financial weakness, 4%. Oh, absolutely. Or even the 2% is not available. So you have a new determination by the Speaker, and I think that he deserves our support to ensure that there is realignment of the allocations that will strengthen Parliament and that will strengthen the judiciary, and that can only better our governance and better our democracy. But you listen to Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, smart Finance Minister, but as I heard your intro, talking about E-levy or E-transactions levy.
Let's start with that, because this is the eve of the much anticipated budget debate.
Yes.
Let's start with that whole controversial subject. You say you rejected the E-levy.
Outright.
Why?
Outright. There's no way that the minority will stand with government on the introduction of the E-levy. Fundamentally for 5 reasons. It's not just opportunistic, but an oppressive tax regime. And I just refer you to paragraph 313 of the minister's statement, where he says that in 2020, report from the GSMA, which is a global system for mobile communication, he talks about mobile money accounts grew by 12.7%, and that transactions on mobile platform increased to 68 billion in 2020 from 15 billion in 2015. Simple, because of COVID. So he's simply wanting to take advantage of COVID to impose a tax. How can that be? I mean, you've asked ordinary people that...
I'm curious, how do you arrive at that conclusion that the single factor is...
No, I've just quoted him. These are not my words. In fact, he's further even quoted in the budget in Ghana, where mobile transactions have grown from 527 billion to 1 billion. So it is opportunistic, it's oppressive, and it's lazy. Now, you don't ask that an ordinary person at the end of the month so assuming you wake up in the morning and you send 1,000 Ghana, afternoon you send another 1,000, and then evening you send another 1,000, you would have paid tax 3 times, same day, on a mobile transaction. It will drill the progress we have made as a country on digital inclusion and a digital economy. Now, take for instance when you encourage people to pay their electricity and water bills through Momo. The person is already struggling to settle his electricity or water bills. That percentage of 3,000 you get cumulatively in a month could as well help the person access more electricity and water than use it to pay a Momo tax. Now, you've heard them redefine economics, that if you earn just $100, you are classified as not being poor. I'm sure we have to go back to the UN definition of poverty and look at those who earn less than $1 a day and multiply the dollar times 30 days and then translate how much does $30 give you. And then you can have a better statistical definition of the poor limit in our country. So it is there are two twin wrongs, or call them 2 twin evils in the budget that the minority will not support. One, the reintroduction of Ejapa, We are absolutely.
Was that in the budget?
Yes, yes.
In fact, I want us to break this down. I will come to the Japan. Let's exhaust the E-levy because I know that's so fundamental to it.
We are still on E-levy.
So you are completely against it?
Absolutely.
But
we are united and collectively we will fight it. We will subject it even to a vote. We want to be counted and to be counted standing in opposition.
You've been in Parliament for so long. Have we ever had a situation where a parliamentary debate goes down to a vote? I mean, not a voice vote, I mean, like actual vote like we saw when we were electing the speaker. Has that happened?
When you see a pregnant goat in the market, it means there's a pregnant problem at home.
So you're going to force... We have
to.
You're banging on your numbers
We have to. Not just our numbers. That's what the people of Ghana expect us to do. You can reflect the aspirations and wishes of the Ghanaian people. And it's one of a no to an E-levy. Then come further to it. Who are you taxing?
I was going to ask you that because the E-levy, there are four components. There is Momo,
yes.
Bank transactions,
yes.
There is also the remittance,
yes.
And then there is there's a fourth one which talks about the. So let's talk about these three.
Are you aware that
you're opposed to the Momo?
Yes.
Bank transfer. What about bank transfer?
Ridiculous. The banks are already paying you corporate taxes. The banks, don't forget, and you see. Policy inconsistency is the anemia of the New Patriotic Party government. When the NDC introduced VAT on financial services, which was a fee, they describe it as nuisance tax. So what word do you have for this? Super nuisance? This was on fees, but this is on persons, any person. So you take, for instance, you transfer $2 million. You want to pay on every million $17,000. That's about $34,000. And nowhere in the world do you tax capital. You either tax income or revenue or expenditure, but you don't tax capital. I mean, that market woman who chooses to buy body, they will send Momo to somebody to go get, pardon my English, to go and get a plantain for her. Now she sends 200 Ghana. You want to tax that? You are taxing her capital. That is not acceptable under any known
Last
principle
week, Friday,
of
the
taxation.
Deputy Finance Minister at the press conference explained that when it comes to bank transfers, they will tax the fee that the banks are charging.
Is it not the same fee they said was nuisance tax? So since when has it become super nuisance? So apart from the policy credibility issues, I just think that it's a no for the country at this material point. And then two, you tax when you don't discipline your opulent, profligate expenditure. That is not encouraging. You cannot be asking Ghanaians to tighten their belt whilst you loosen your excessive, unexplained expenditure.
Which expenditure again are you describing?
Take a presidential jet, for instance. When you hear argument that the president must bath in the air, and you hear the amount of money that is spent, colossal, on travels. Can't we minimize that? Can't we reduce that? So fiscal consolidation does not only mean upping your revenue, it also means disciplining your expenditure. And I think that government must look carefully onto that. If you take, for instance, even COVID-related expenditure, we've asked for a thorough audit on this. You see ministries buying PPEs at different prices. Nose masks. In this budget, we would interrogate it. You see a particular ministry buy it maybe at 5, 10 cities, another maybe 60, 40, in that order. How can that happen? So we simply are saying that the introduction of an E-levy will be a disincentive to the growth of the private sector in Ghana. It will be a disincentive to a digital economy and to financial inclusion. And overall, it will affect the development. And then, more importantly, you are drifting back to cash functional economy. You now want the person, if he wants, then he goes through Kintampo, carry his money with all the rest to Accra, because people will find a way to avoid the payment of the taxes. And to avoid it will be to go back to the cash phenomena. So what has happened to all the talk about digital platform, electronic platform, and what uses...
But Mr. Drisu, also the levies on merchant payments. You certainly are not saying that the merchants who are making all these payments shouldn't be paying tax on that.
Is that the only tax merchants already pay? And their remittances abroad.
Yes.
You know, for instance...
In what remittances?
No. Even that. You have an old mother somewhere, and then you decide that out of your earning, you want to send something to her. Must that be taxed? You see, that's why I say it's a lazy way of raising revenue. And I've given you the numbers. Just because he has seen growth from $15 billion to $68 billion in 2020, which is a consequence of COVID. Under COVID, everybody, because of social distancing and the lack of travel, was compelled to transact business electronically. You don't take advantage of that. That's exploitative. That's clearly exploitative. And I think that it does not serve the good of this country that we should allow 1.75. Ultimately, if you do the calculation, you may come to some 3.75 cumulatively as to. So as many times as you send Momo, as many times you would pay tax.
If not the e-levy, what? We need the money, obviously. You don't disagree that this country is in need of dire revenues. If not the e-levy, what's the minority's alternative?
Levy, expand the tax net.
But this is expand the tax net.
Not in the informal sector taking advantage of this particular issue. I have said that fees on financial services, the New Patriotic Party, desperate in opposition, said that this was nuisance. So why are you introducing a super nuisance tax? We need to grow the economy. And I'm saying that overall, you don't kill the hen that lays the golden egg. We must be very careful. What has happened to communication service tax? Are you scrapping it? Is this additional to it? They already pay you. You take communication service tax. What is it on? And you want to add an e-levy, as I said, because COVID provided increased transaction on electronic platforms across the world. Best practice, show me anywhere in the world you've heard that levy is put on. Indeed, Kenya and Tanzania, even Tanzania, their president have had to come in to reverse some decisions on it because it didn't serve their purpose. In Kenya, we are told, the very factors I've explained to you, that this is inimical to the
but I've asked the alternative. If not this,
economy.
You represent, I said at the beginning,
we will reduce expenditure and provide discipline in expenditure management. That's an alternative.
Alone will fix the huge deficit we have in our budget.
It will be one. When you talk about deficit, maybe we should look at the numbers properly.
Yes.
In this budget, he's announcing a deficit of 37 billion Ghana cedis. Even again, there he's crafty. You see 37 billion. He talks about a bailout of 6 billion. He negates it to 31 billion instead of 42 billion. There's something fundamentally wrong. So we are saying that you can introduce other taxes. Maybe, let me answer you.
So you have your support of taxes?
No. Yes. Take, for instance, relate e-levy to tolls. So for the New Patriotic Party government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, it was a case of abolish road tolls and then increase e-levy.
Yes.
He may as well have increased the tolls.
Why?
Who pays tolls? The rich. If you don't have a card, you pay toll. So I'm simply saying that disaggregate this tax is targeting ordinary people.
But the road tolls factually only contribute 72 million to the road fund. It's so small. It doesn't begin to do anything for our sector.
Double it, increase it. If you increase road tolls, you can double it. So
it will take you close to 200 million.
No, you can double it. Indeed, the New Patriotic Party. No, the New Patriotic Party government, go back to the 2021 budget, said they will increase road tolls. Only to somersault this year and say that
the governments are allowed to change their minds on
they are
policy.
taking it off because they are relying on an e-levy.
Because this will bring in more revenue.
I'm still on tolls. You know, let's get serious as a country. I'm very optimistic, and without fear of contradiction, road tolls will be reintroduced in Ghana market in the foreseeable future. You cannot be talking about dualizing roads. You want to do Accra Kumasi, Accra Cape Coast, maybe Tamale Bolga or Tamale Wa. Everywhere in the world, tolls will support, especially when government itself has passed what is known as the Public-Private Partnership Act. If you come and invest in the road sector, how are you going to recoup your money? Particularly with this distressed economy, you will have to rely on tolls. What the people of Ghana want is proper use of the money, judicious and optimal use of the money. They are not necessarily saying that don't toll us. And then here the laughable excuse that road tolls have contributed to congestion and is contributing to pollution. Bad, immoral, terrible roads have also contributed to the same congestion. What have you done about it? Don't you consume more fuel when you can't drive properly on the road?
But
so the alternative, probably you could have adjusted that upward. And if you find congestion in the cities, take them out of town. The alternative is not to say I'm scrapping it.
Yeah, you talk about roads
in a manner which is even not lawful.
But the E-levy's purpose, part of it, is to deal with road infrastructure.
When was the road fund established? Have you followed the history? We have always been told that the road fund will fund maintenance of road. It will allow for redevelopment of roads. It will allow for construction of roads. And you see, there is a relationship. That's why I said that we will not support a JAPA. And you said that let's deal with E-levy before.
Yes, because the JAPA is so substantive.
We'll come to it. But there's a relationship. We have collateralized the road fund.
Yeah.
So today, road contractors are not being paid. They are not being paid early. Many of them have had their businesses collapse. Some are losing their lives because of delayed payment. And there are problems with computation of delayed interest and others. So you have collateralized. We know what it means. Take Get Fund, collateralize. Today, if Get Fund makes 1.4 billion, 680 million of it is going to Dachi to service debt. Kenofurata economics again. I mean, the tax receivable is what is used to collateralize. Now, you want to take our mineral revenue, collateralize it as they anticipated to perpetuity until we drew their attention. They wanted to do it for a longer period. They even said CEO could not be changed. So forget the corruption assessment risks of EJAPA. Mineral resources contribute about 4% to total revenue of Ghana. It also contributes significantly to our gross national product. Why do you want to take loans against it? Arguably, for every other year, you are likely to get about 130 million US dollars without collateralization. I mean, I saw the Minister of Finance happily receive a check of 139 million from one of the gold mining companies. So why do you want to mortgage that?
I want to come back to your road tolls argument. You say road tolls will return because you need the money to do the roads. My argument,
unless of course, we don't mean that the finance minister public-private partnership.
The finance minister's argument to you is that hole that the abolishment of the road toll is going to leave is going to be filled by 1.75% on E-levy because part of it is road. He put that before you in Parliament.
I'm saying that he's saying
he's going to get more from E-levy to fix the road than he's getting from the tolls.
No, you see, you probably. I'm sure that
isn't that why the roads are not being done? Because they're getting so little.
No.
The entire road fund is $1 billion a year.
He's not spending.
Tolls contribute 72 million.
He's not spending.
E-levy is $6 billion a year. That is the money we need to fix the roads.
He's not spending on roads because the flagship of this administration, arguably a social good, was to do free senior high school. Free senior high school. The results, as I have weighed into it, 22 schools did not even have one pass. You can check 2019, 2020 WASSCE results. Now, of them, only 33.5% get passed into tertiary education. What happens to the 65%? Shoeshine boys? Is that what you call human capital? Is that what you call investment in human capital? Certainly not. So we have to rethink. We have to rethink, like it or not. We have to rethink the financing of free senior high school.
But that is coming from oil.
No good. So even your oil resources, you may not be able to account for it tomorrow because you are spending all on consumption and recurrent expenditure.
No, but let me ask you.
You have like 1.1 billion dedicated to it. I'm saying the outcome is that in 22 secondary schools, none pass. 33% of them, and I'm saying that since 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, the pass for WASSCE has not exceeded 40%. What happens to the 60% who are failing and will continue to fail because standards have been lowered, quality have been lowered. You now have this red, gold, green traffic lights of go home and come, which has associated teenage pregnancy that you probably...
Let me ask you, at the beginning of the show, you said that the Speaker of Parliament is demanding 2% of the annual budget of revenue
into the medium term.
Into the medium term to be set aside
yes,
for.
He's simply saying that finance Parliament well and finance
other institutions 2%.
Well.
But the question to you, Honourable Aaron Adrisu, is where is the 2% going to come from, if not from revenue measures such as the E-levy?
The billions are allocated to the executive and the president. Where does it come from?
From the same pool.
He's been allocated. Was that pool with E-levy? E-levy has not been.
But you're asking
so
now
you are
for more.
simply saying that.
You're asking for more. That's why we need more revenue measures.
Evans, any person, you see, we should not reduce the development of the country to anybody who presides over Ghana has access to money, tax money, and you choose what to do with the money. Prioritization is important, and we are simply saying that don't target ordinary poor people with your tax instrument or tax regime. That is not going to be popular, particularly so where you want to start and you say you want to start at 1.75%.
Should it be reduced or should it be scrapped?
I say the NDC minority, collectively and united, will demand a vote on this matter and a
completely scrapping it. You don't even want a reduction of the 1.75.
You see, in a budget, you isolate good and non-promising promises. In this budget, we have so far identified 2 policy wrongs.
Okay.
One, the reintroduction of EJEPA and the collateralization of our mineral resources. And we have said that observe how GET Fund is suffering as a result of securitization. Observe how Road Fund is suffering as a result of securitization. Don't extend it to our mineral resources.
Let me ask you,
we will not support that.
Finally, on the road toll, last week you were on your feet in Parliament when the sector minister decided to order the cessation of the tolls immediately. You were concerned that his action was disrespectful to Parliament when the debate had not started. Since then, we know that the Speaker directed that he reinstates it. It hasn't happened. In fact, the government issued a statement to say that they did no wrong, and so it will continue until, of course, the Parliament looks at it. What's your reaction to the status quo? The status quo maintains despite your protest in Parliament.
If you are a student of the rule of law, it has several dimensions. The law is no respecter of any person. Equality before the law, natural justice are all principles of the rule of law. Now, if you have the same Minister of Finance who read the policy statement, in a particular paragraph emphasize that this is subject to parliamentary approval and will take off January 2022. And you have a Minister for Roads who, out of over excitement of the abolishment of tolls, issue a statement and say that 12 a.m. midnight, this tax is effective. One, there is a problem of a breach to the Public Financial Management Act. There's a problem to a breach of the Appropriation Act because the Appropriation Act anticipated that you take road tolls up to 31st December, and that will contribute to your overall road fund. You would lose that. More importantly, there is what we call the Fees and Charges Act, which is a legislation. Appropriation is also a legislation. None of them have been reviewed. None of them have been revised. The Road Tolls Act, NRCD, as amended, have not been done. It is simply a state of normlessness. You may not want to accept it today, but you are encouraging disrespect for the supremacy of the law. It is not just when some other person is in breach of it. tell me clearly, and I'll read to you a paragraph in the budget, if you give me a copy, where the Honorable Minister of Finance, Ken Furata, himself stated that the effectiveness of these tolls to be abolished is January 2022, subject to parliamentary approval. In any case, Parliament has not even approved the policy principles. So you see, the Minister of Road can be in a hurry. You know, Nana Addo admonishes ministers to be in a hurry. He can be in a hurry to respect the president and to obey the president, to please him. But he cannot be in a hurry to disrespect the laws of Ghana.
Well, so as he's called your bluff. The speaker said if he doesn't do it, it will be in contempt.
Don't worry. We've seen people play with semantics, and some people even providing new Macmillan definition of cessation. You see, if you said suspension, it is not the same thing as cessation. Suspension cannot mean cessation. But if you say cessation, black and white, letter and spirit, from 12 midnight, it means what? Just ask yourself this question, and I'll leave it to the Ghanaian public to judge. The collection of road tolls, was it by operation of law? If yes, then there's a breach to the law, because that law has not been amended. Well, you were not just taking road tolls. So you are taking it on the basis of...
Beyond complaining, what are you going to do about it? Because he's called your bluff. Nothing has happened since you complained, and the speaker directed and said you'll be in contempt if you don't.
So tomorrow, when people go against the law, this government will have the strength to say that they should respect the law. You see, the precedent we are setting is not good enough for our country. It's not good for our democracy, and it's not good for oversight and strengthening Parliament against the executive. I mean, what is wrong if the Minister for Roads says that, look, I got it wrong?
He says he didn't.
Wrong. No, he didn't. And I say there is no day you can substitute cessation for suspension in any dictionary.
But you have the power to do something about it as Parliament. What will you do about it is a fundamental question.
Don't worry. Coming events will cast their shadows. So don't worry.
Speaker said contempt. Are you going to cite him for contempt?
We are studying the standing orders, and you heard the frantic efforts to say that there was an emergency. What emergency? We simply are saying that Ghana must remain a country governed by law. Nothing more.
On the budget, you said two things you're opposed to. Bringing back of Ejapa and E-levy. Beyond that, should I take it then that you applaud the rest of the budget?
No, you see, it's difficult to take a budget and say I disagree with its entirety.
So which part do you applaud? Which part do you applaud and agree with?
No, when they begin to say they want to bring a youth start,
yes, the 1 billion for youth, etc.
Don't forget, between 2013 and 2016, President John Dramani Mahama, then as head of state and president of our republic, dealt with what you call you remember youth enterprise support?
Yes.
So you are just reinventing the wheel and say you start, nothing new. The youth enterprise support was to target entrepreneurial development. Now this budget, I don't see anywhere that it is supporting how we collectively address unemployment.
But that's youth, that's what the youth start.
It is
a
not
billion CDs every year. In addition to 3 billion from the finance sector.
You get carried away by Furata's billions. Go back 2021. Obatampa and how Obatamboni, you remember?
Yes,
it's 100 billion.
Yes.
And that you even allow for banks to borrow 2 billion. And that government will provide guarantee zero success, zero achievement. So why carried away by a billion promise? In Obatampa, Ghana cares. He said 100 billion. Yeah. Show me 10, 20 billion spent subsequent to Obatampa. You see, it was again another clever way of a policy shift. This is a government which campaign on three fundamental promises will double-digit grow the economy. The economy has never grown double-digit in the last 4 or 5 years.
They were hit by COVID.
No, this is a government which said we'll end the suffering of the Ghanaian people. So part of our objection to E-levy, you are coming to exacerbate the suffering of the Ghanaian people, particularly those who earn less, that you want to be able to tax them. They have not achieved that. So you saw a sudden departure from what they used to call infrastructure for poverty elevation into Obatampa. It's not clicking. It will not work because Ghana today is a debt distress risk country. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and Ken Ofori-Atta have only been good at one thing since assumption of office, borrowing. And they have increased Ghana's borrowing from 120 billion in 2017 January to 341 billion. Now, that is about 76% of GDP. And it is even projected that it's going to be 81% because they're only giving you up to September. Yeah. October, November, December have not been added on. So you risk that. Now, any person can govern well if you have access to borrowing this money. So you've borrowed all this. 120 to 341 billion is not enough. Then you think that you want to come and tax. And when we ask you, you say that tax will bring in some 6.9 billion. So alternatively, you have taxation, which is revenue. You can have PPPs, which is also an alternative to financing infrastructure and other development. So they have just reduced Ghana into a debt risk country, and we risk defaulting. And Evans, to appreciate it better, at the time President Mahama and the NDC left office, we spent about 10.4 billion on debt service. It increased to 16 billion around 2019, and is now hovering between 25 billion to 32 billion. That's how much you spend. So how much will be left for other purposes? We haven't dealt with compensation. Then rigidities. We are talking about the statutory funds. As we speak today, National Health Insurance is surviving on bonds. Releases have not been made to them. They owe service providers. Get fund owes. Common fund has not been released. Of 1.4 billion, maybe only 500 million have so far been released. Yet they say you should praise them, that they are doing well. And then he is piling arrears quietly, and not declaring them. So he paints a picture of a rosy economy. It is not a rosy economy. It's an economy on the path to crisis.
I asked you earlier that what do you like about the budget? Nothing?
Budget. There will be some infrastructure initiatives under the budget that will benefit the Ghanaian people.
So you like the infrastructure?
I'll share with you one of the things I like. Look at paragraph 320, when he says he's reintroducing tax exemption. That's laudable because we are told that Ghana loses between $1 to $2 billion, or about 2% of our GDP, to the grant of tax exemptions. So that's laudable, but deceptive. Policy and credibility. First announcement, go to 2017 budget of Ken Ofori-Atta. He announced, and even laid before Parliament, a tax exemption bill. 5 years, nothing was done about it. And then you come back and say, I'm reintroducing tax exemption. Now, that takes me to a more important issue. 1D, 1F. Many industries have benefited from tax exemption. Its consequence on employment, its consequence on growth. We are not measuring it, and nobody seems to know. What they have just done is to turn around industries that existed. From day one, they never told the Ghanaian people that they were coming to retool existing industry. They say 1D, 1F. As of yesterday, 76 of it was in Greater Accra, and maybe 4, 5, 7, 6 in Upper West Northern region. Are you saying that there are 76 districts in Greater Accra and 4, 5 districts in Wa, in Upper East and Upper West region? It's a failed policy. They said they were going to spend $1 million per constituency, $1 million at the Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia exchange rate, not in 2017 at 4.2 to $1. Today is 6 to $1. So every constituency should be getting 6 million Ghana cedis between 2017 till yesterday. So Tamale South, if you want, you are from Swami should get like 24 million Ghana cedis. You know what, they can point at toilets. That they have built toilets in your constituency to replace $1 million per constituency, and that they have gone to construct a borehole. Deceptive. Deceptive.
Let's wrap.
You see, you owe the people of Ghana a certain truthfulness. And we are saying that for all this that you have borrowed, let me give you one pride of the NDC. For instance, John Dramani Mahama borrowed to build Terminal 3. Yesterday, from one of the lectures I got in Sereni and at Ho, at least so far, some $6 million have been recouped from it. That means that is a productive kind of borrowing. Yeah. But you borrow all this just to be able to ring fence debt, that's problematic. And then but that's again,
not actually inaccurate, Mr. Fuseni, Haruna Idrisu, because you have government spending. You mentioned it, spending on education,
and then
government spending on NHIS. Yes. Government has built the interchange at Pokwase. Yes. They point all that out.
They are building interchange even in my own Tamale.
Exactly.
But you know the story about
which is 95%.
Oh, I should commend those of you at Joy FM Multimedia for your expose on it. You are aware that they came to Parliament for $646 million on Sino Hydro. The Chinese are not going to release any dime to support this. It's another failed project.
But the project is almost done in your
the people of Kumasi have been deceived that they will have some interchanges and bridges in the name of Sino Hydro.
You remember, that your constituency is benefiting.
You remember Kwalogu?
Yes.
Hydro, they came against Sino Hydro, over $1 billion, they got approval.
Yes.
And you know what is causing them? Their tank. I think the Minister of Finance went somewhere and said that instead of going to IMF, he rather will go to the capital market. So the market said, okay, well, you are not ready to be disciplined. You are not ready to be put on the path of discipline.
Mr. Idrisu, let's come back. Let's wrap up on this. Let's wrap up on this budget.
Another major failure of government.
But there's evidence in your constituency of an infrastructure that is almost complete. It is not being
financed by the Chinese government.
But your constituents do not
in any case, where
the money is coming from so far as the project is finished.
Are you sure my constituents wanted the bridge where it is? They probably would have chosen an alternative road somewhere. Maybe if you spend that money to open up Bimbla, Pandai, Yendi,
You're saying that is a misplaced priority?
No, those are your words.
I'm just asking.
You said I should ask, and I say probably if I asked, they could have opted for something else.
Let's wrap up on the budget. So, the many who have what you say you will reject the budget. Who say?
I didn't say we will not support the two twin policy wrongs in the budget.
So unless they take those out, you're opposed to the budget being approved?
We will compel a vote on it because we want to stand counted that we stood for the ordinary people, we stood for the Ghanaian people, we stood for discipline and reduction in opulent profligate expenditure, and we stood that widen tax net but don't target ordinary people with opportunistic oppressive tax regime that only takes advantage.
In the past, when I've heard the minority say this, when it came to the approval of ministers, 30, it turns out but this is important. It's about it turns out that by the time the vote is done,
this is policy.
The majority side have carried the day, even with their numbers close to yours.
And I say we will go beyond the voice vote on these two particular matters.
We're going to hold you to it because we've seen it before in the past.
I took responsibility beyond approval and disapproval of ministers and matters associated with it. On this policy, I know that my side stand united on it. I've engaged. You know, when the budget was read, I'm not one of those who rushed to make a comment. I needed to consult very widely, and the caucus is firm. But
you still would need at least one or two people from the other side to join you. Do you have that?
No, even if you get 137, it means it's defeated.
Because it's not a two-thirds.
If you know parliamentary procedure. Actually, it's not a two-thirds decision.
To approve the budget.
We will want to be counted that half of the Ghanaian population did not support it. And then, Evans, let me just end with another concern, Development Bank. The Minister of Finance reports that he has...
They've received the license from the Bank of Ghana.
With license, you have ADB, kind of on a life support machine. You have NIB, which is kind of oxygen support, yet you are interested in setting up a new development bank to do what new? Necessarily, this is one bank that the minister ought to have come to Parliament for two reasons. One, you've had a banking sector crisis with a debilitating effect on the economy and unemployment and even on the banking sector generally. You need law to regulate what this development bank will do so that they don't also come and behave like ADB or NIB, where they are not interested. It's called ADB, Agricultural Development Bank. Yeah, they are not interested in giving money to farmers. They are interested in giving money to traders. That means there is a shift. Now, you are setting up a development bank, and hear what the Minister of Finance says. He says that he has $1 billion US, and that $800 million US is ready. From where? Where did he get appropriation for this $800 million? Where did you see an advert inviting any Ghanaian on the setup of a bank? He cannot extend his private banking into public banking. It's wrong. It's wrong. If you want to set up a development bank, why? Ghana exempt. We went to Parliament and established it by law to support export financing, even though the money from the information available to me is not being used. Even that Ghana
budgets ago, he put the development bank concept in the budget, which you approved.
We served notice. It does not.
Parliament approved.
No, Parliament approved what we said. Come for legislation, and even if you go further in the budget, he talks about 800 million. Then he says it is expected that the development bank will leverage these resources. Which resources? Where did you get the resources from? And that he's received total financing around 550 million. From where? On whose authority? I want to see, Evans, don't take for granted purposes of reporting. We need the Minister of Finance to annually report to Parliament the operationality and the activities of this bank, because that is taxpayers' money. You're not setting up this bank as a private equity firm. And I'm saying that when do you even go into legislation? You learn from your past. Our past on the banking sector is not a good story. You know what has happened. Government have had to spend over 23 billion Ghana cedis on banking sector bailout. You know how many jobs that could create? That money, is it not higher than what you get from an E-levy?
I want to take a quick break. When I return, just a few minutes to wrap up, I'll get his thoughts on other things Parliament. Parliament has been in the news a lot recently with a lot of debate around some key issues. The Speaker is biting pretty hard, stamping his authority on a number of things, including the attempt to arrest one of his own and the Speaker's pronouncement on the parliamentary immunity concept. I wonder what his thoughts are on how you resolve that matter once and for all. Some say it's only the Supreme Court that can deal with this. Does he agree? Stay with me. After this, my guest will wrap it up for me. And you're still live here on PM Express. My guest is still the Minority Leader, Henry Drisu. Mr. Drisu, let's wrap up on the budget. Let's talk about another big policy shift that was announced, which is the benchmark values. Government has removed the port clearing discounts, 50% that they gave those who are importing products. That certainly can be a good policy, is it not? Because it's going to help protect the local manufacturing sector against those who are flooding the country with foreign imported goods.
So why was it reviewed downwards? You see, it is a wake-up call for Parliament to look at the legislations we've passed in that particular area. And Evans, you are asking about what alternative the NDC has. The port. All the money we need is at the port. You don't need any E-levy. What we need is discipline at the port. If you go to the port and you are told people who come with cheese from the office of the presidency for clearance of goods, let's do a forensic audit of it to know who has walked out with what. You know, everywhere in the world, trade facilitation plays some fundamental roles. Ease of doing business, the transaction cost of doing business, and the cost of doing business. I have argued that even customs must work 24 hours. Why should Ghana Customs close at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. and go home? Indeed, myself and the Honorable Dr. Anthony Akoto-Osai sponsored some amendment to one of the Customs Amendment Act. Customs must work 24 hours. That is where pertains everywhere in the world. But I'm saying that let's police our import duties well. Let's police what goes on in the port well. You will not need to be taxing Ghanaians.
But you're in support of the removal of the port clearing subsidies?
Even when I left the Ministry of Trade, in my handing over note, I emphasized the bonded warehouse regime. It was an opportunity for businesses to divert taxes and go and load goods and pack them out.
I mean,
we said review it.
Yes.
So
let's come back briefly.
Yes, benchmark reverse.
It has been reversed now.
But
good policy.
Somewhat, because the traders are saying that it will add 30% to their cost.
Yes.
But in terms of import substitution, you can describe it as good. But for purpose of growing our own local, we're not doing enough to expand the export base of the country, and that's my word.
So this is one of those policies that will help.
No, this will not immediately help. Look at another thing that the Minister of Finance wants to do smartly. If you go to page 60 of the budget, read this. Review fees and charges with an average increase of at least 15% in 2022. Hear these words. And thereafter, subject to automatic annual adjustment by average inflation. Another wrong.
Deregulating that sector.
He doesn't want to come back to Parliament. You see, go to Article 174. It's only Parliament that has the mandate to impose taxes. So even this benchmark revenue, I think that we must have a second position. The power we give to the Minister of Finance, I'll seek an amendment to it. That power, once import duties are determined by Parliament, let it be.
Very finally, before you go, there's been a running battle between Parliament and the courts and the police. Recent cases, Sosu, and there's a view that the minority side is obstructing justice in this sense, in this matter, because you are hiding him with the support of the Speaker from facing justice. Well, what's your reaction to that?
Not at all. The Honorable Sosu is the respected Member of Parliament for Medina. And parliamentary immunities and privileges from the Lord Kings in United Kingdom was to preserve the honor and dignity of a Member of Parliament and to ensure that in the performance of his duty, he is not obstructed. Can you imagine that because I've just sat here and announced that I will oppose Ejapa and I will oppose E-levy, on my way to Parliament the day the vote is taken, I'm told that police have invited me. Is that the culture you want to encourage? And then you wanted to arrest the Honorable Sosu before the face of his constituents. They have elected him. You want to humiliate him before his constituents. There is no problem. I think that the IGP has written to the Speaker. Even today we discussed it with the Speaker. The leadership.
The second letter had come?
The leadership of Parliament will be meeting the IGP to discuss several other matters, including the matter of immunity. The President of Ghana, is he not a citizen of Ghana? But the Constitution has placed him above the law.
Yeah, of course.
The Constitution in Article 64, I hope I get it right, says that the President whilst in office shall not be subject to any civil or criminal proceeding. It does not mean that you have placed the President above the law. He is still a citizen, but you don't want to obstruct him from the performance. So finally,
this meet with the IGP, what do you hope the outcome will be?
No, but Sosu, get the Speaker right and get Sosu right. Sosu and his group wrote formally to the IGP. They were granted approval. The police even gave men and women to support him. So what were the police who were demonstrating with him? What was their role? What were they?
But you know that's not
what were they doing?
That's not what the public order.
And I say what
during the protest, if things go wrong, people can be held accountable and responsible.
So what was the duty of the police who accompanied him to demonstrate?
I mean, but finally,
but more importantly, let me reveal this. You see, there was an attempt to arrest him. After that failed, and a protest and a letter written. If the letter had preceded the arrest, I'm sure the Speaker will have no problem. Look,
when is this meeting with the IGP?
Let me just put it on record. Many members of Parliament daily are interrogated, law enforcement. Nobody is above the law. We will never, ever obstruct any institution of state from the performance of its lawful and legitimate duties. But we will stand to fight any attempt to use law enforcement to intimidate, to harass.
Very quickly for me in 30 seconds. What do you hope to get out of the IGP meeting? Hopefully, you want to resolve this finally.
A rapprochement, and to assure him that we have always respected the law. Police, CID have probed and investigated many members of Parliament. Some are even before the court. So if Parliament was not cooperating, how could you have prepared a docket to be in court? It's just that in this particular instance, the attempt to arrest was done before the Speaker was notified. So the Speaker referred to time-tested parliamentary immunities, that in the performance of your duty. Now, the Honorable Sosu was protesting bad roads in Medina.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful. We're going to see how this meeting with the IGP goes. But we'll see you tomorrow and as the debate proceeds. Enjoy the rest of your evening.